Hello and welcome back to the Mike Live and 5 channel. On today's video, I'm bringing you guys something a little bit different. Obviously, yesterday, Brentford lost 2-0 against Liverpool. I'm recording this on Sunday morning. Instead of the normal kind of full-time analysis, tactical breakdown, call it what you will, that I normally put on this channel, today I'm going to try something a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit shorter, a little bit more raw reaction, taking into account some things that people have said online, tapping into some interesting debates. I need some feedback in terms of if this is the kind of video you want to see more often on this channel. Obviously, those longer videos where I kind of break down the whole game, they take a hell of a long time to kind of prep. They take a hell of a long time to film and edit and get up. And that's why when the game's been on a Saturday, you don't get that kind of tactical breakdown until the Wednesday or the Thursday, which by the time it comes out, you're already kind of looking forward to the next game. So this is something that I want to do a bit more often, a bit more just me talking into the camera. There's less prep, it's a bit more raw, and I need to know whether this is the kind of video you want to see going forward on the channel. And I thought today would be a perfect day to do it because there are a few things from the Liverpool game that I want to talk about in this video. Just before I get into the video though, I just want to say those full-time analysis shows, they're not going. Let me know if you like those videos in the comment section. Obviously, if there's a particularly exciting game or loads to talk about, then that kind of video takes precedence over this kind of video. But I need to know in the comments. Let me know because those videos I really enjoy doing even still. They just take a little bit more time to produce, edit and get out everywhere. And then, like I said, by the time they go out, it's a little bit dated anyway. So this is the kind of video that I might look to do going forward. But yeah, let me know in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your mates, all those good things. Links for the podcast will be in the description. We haven't recorded that episode yet, but it will come out on Monday. What I want to talk about in this video, right? The Liverpool game yesterday and the City game as well. I think in the 3 games we've played against the top opposition, the 4 games we've played against top opposition, bar maybe Forest, I think we've been in all of those games. The Arsenal one was really frustrating. They kind of blew us away in a 10-minute spell. The City one, we got back into the game and it felt like a win, and it was a really, really good performance going forward at least. And then the Liverpool game yesterday, it was an incredible defensive performance from Brentford. And obviously it's annoying to lose in the fashion that we did, and it's not the first time it's happened this season, last season. But I think people kind of losing their head a little bit online, on Twitter specifically. I think it's a little bit overstretched. We kind of touched on it on the podcast. Yesterday was a free hit against Liverpool, the best team in the league, the best team in the world, potentially top of the Champions League, top of the Premier League now. They were really, really good, and we frustrated them for very, very large periods. I think the defensive performance from Collins, KLP was magnificent. The way he kept tabs on Salah throughout the whole game, he didn't really have a sniff, is a big, big effort. I think that's the first time he's blanked this season, or the second time he's blanked this season in terms of a goal or an assist. And KLP, as a left wing, playing out of position at left back, did a tremendous, tremendous job of containing his threat. But what I want to talk about from the Liverpool game, without going too kind of granular into our shape and the screenshots and everything I normally do, what I want to talk about is Mads Roerslev, Vitaly Janelt and Yehor Yarmoliuk. Probably the most talked about Brentford players at the moment in Mads Roerslev and Vitaly Janelt. And they are 2 players that get quite a bit of stick from me, from everyone else. They're 2 players that have spent a lot of time at Brentford. They've got a lot of goodwill from the fans. But one thing I want to talk about in these videos going forward, if you guys like it, let me know in the comments, is just tapping into some of the arguments that I've seen, some of the narratives floating around on social media. And one of them comes from Gaffer Superbees. He's basically comparing Vitaly Janelt and Mads Roerslev. And he says one player is the worst Premier League player of all time and one just runs so much for Brentford. And he's compared Mads' last few games with Vitaly's last few games. I want to focus on Mads now because I saw another tweet that I'm going to grab. Someone on the GPG suggesting that some might be joking, but he's a strong contender for Hall of Fame when he reaches the end of his career. And someone's quoted it by saying, Brentford Hall of Fame, I give up with his fan base, right? Listen, the Mads pylon is getting weird now. Mads Roerslev had a really good game yesterday. He had a really good game against City, bar the mistake for City's second goal, but then made up for it with the assist. And listen, against Fulham, he was awful. And we have been the first to criticise him. We've been the first to say that he is not good enough for the Premier League in terms of being a first-choice right-back at a club that has ambitions to push into the European places. I am not saying for 1 second that I think Mads Roerslev is the answer in terms of our problems at fullback. He is never supposed to have been the answer, right? We've had Aaron Hickey out for so long. We've had Rico Henry out for so long. But he is always available and he's always ready to step in and he doesn't shy away from it. And I have critiqued his style of play at times. I don't think he looks forward enough for me. Having said that, the amount that he bombs on the overlap, round our right winger, be that Bryan Mbeumo or Kevin Schade or Yarmoliuk, his work rate going forward and his work rate defensively is really, really good. And he does a shift. Thomas Frank clearly trusts him, and he's one of his trusted servants. So I just think this pile-on from Brentford fans towards Mads Roerslev doesn't help anything. It's a similar way to how Flecken got the criticism last season. It's just a bit strange. When you're criticising him when he's had a really good game, it's just like you're just doing it for the sake of it. And I don't understand it. And this, for me, in no way is saying that, you know, some might be joking, but he's a strong candidate for the Hall of Fame. I don't think he is a strong candidate for Hall of Fame. I think you need to be a certain calibre of player, and first of all, you need to have played enough games. Mads Roerslev's played 111 games for Brentford, right, across the Championship and the Premier League. But Dan mentioned something on the last episode of the podcast. What we will remember Mads Roerslev for is for providing the assist that sent us into the Premier League to get the second goal at Wembley for Emiliano Marcondes. That should be our lasting memory of Mads Roerslev, and we should be forever grateful for that. No matter how bad he plays, no matter how many goals he gives away, he has been a trusted servant for Thomas Frank through the Championship all the way up into the Premier League. So all this kind of pile-on, the nastiness of it, it just makes me think you're just piling onto a player because everyone else is. And criticism is fine, but there's a fine line between criticism and abuse. So I just think that the Mads Roerslev pile-on has just gotten way out of hand. And he actually had a really good game yesterday against Liverpool. Contained Diaz quite well. Nothing really came down his side. And the goal actually came from the other side. So I don't really understand the Mads Roerslev pile-on. But it leads me on to talk about Vitaly Janelt. And just before that, to Mads Roerslev and KLP's and Nathan Collins and Sepp Vandenberg's credit, people will look at the game yesterday and say Liverpool absolutely battered us. Look at the XG, 4.16 to 1.2. But if you look at the quality of their chances, they've got about 3 high-quality chances, 2 of which they score from, and all the rest of them are just from in and around the box, but they're very low-value chances. So I don't think Thomas Frank would have had a problem with them kind of peppering our goal from outside the box, inside the box, making tackles. It just lowers the quality of their chances, and that is credit to the defenders that we had on display. Mads Roerslev, big part of that. Sepp Vandenberg, Nathan Collins, and Keane Lewis-Potter. Anyway, back to this Twitter thread. Basically, someone's replied saying, "Bro's comparing Janelt with Roerslev." Gaff says, "I am, yeah, because one player gets hate every game no matter what. One has been shit for fucking weeks and people praise him. Janelt is a key player that without him our midfield is lost. Roerslev sometimes has decent games but is pretty shit in the defence. The only way Roerslev could save his career is if Frank put him as a winger, because as a right back, he is shit." First of all, like the hyperbole of this guy's reply is just ridiculous. First of all, I understand what the guy is saying in reply to this tweet. Janelt has been a key player, in a similar way to Mads, through the Championship up until the Premier League. He's been a great squad player. He's always available, just like Mads is. So the comparison I actually think is valid. But what I will say, right, is if you think about when Brentford have been at our best this season, at our attacking best this season, it was against Newcastle at home. I think everyone can agree that it was against Newcastle at home. And it's going to lead me on to talk about Yarmo in the next section of this video. But in that game, Vitaly Janelt, I think he missed it due to injury or sickness, one of the two. And Wissa started, Carvalho started, Thiago started, Yarmo started, Norgard started, right? I think that was the most free-flowing Brentford have been in the Premier League to date. Genuinely, I think in that second half, we blew Newcastle away against really strong opposition. We dominated the game. We peppered their goal with chances. We did everything right in that game, and Vitaly Janelt wasn't a part of that. And it's not me, don't misconstrue this as me saying Vitaly Janelt is a bad player and I don't want him at Brentford. He is a fantastic player. But in terms of what we need going forward and in terms of having that creative spark in midfield and allowing Norgard to be the sitter and then someone else or 2 other midfielders to be a bit more creative in front of him, I don't think Vitaly Janelt has to be that player. I think if you've got Norgard, he does that job on his own and he's got a relationship with the other players so that if one goes forward, he stays back, and they've got a synchrony. But Norgard is the key in all of this. Our key midfield 3 always has to have Norgard in it. I think that's a non-negotiable. But against Liverpool, there were frequent times, and it's against a lot of teams, where Janelt gives the ball away a lot. And I don't think he has the passing range. I don't think he has the attacking prowess to really hurt teams in the way that Thomas Frank wants to hurt teams this season, in terms of whether that's spraying the ball across and making a switch of play over to Bryan Mbeumo or to Yehor Yarmoliuk or to Kevin Schade. I don't think he has the passing range to do that. I don't think he quite has the technical ability to play through the middle in tricky situations where it's congested in midfield like it was yesterday. There were many times where Curtis Jones or Ryan Gravenberch or Szoboszlai or one of their midfielders got on top of Janelt and we ended up losing the ball and conceding a transition. I think if you look at our next most attacking, well-rounded performance, it was against Southampton not a couple of weeks ago when we won 5-0 and Janelt wasn't in the team, he came on as a sub. And I just think in terms of our attacking play, it suffers a little bit with Janelt in the team. And you could see that yesterday in terms of having someone who can find the outball to Brian Mbeumo and Johan Wissa and Kevin Schade. And like I said, I really don't want people to misconstrue this as me saying I don't want Janelt in the team, because I do. I think he's a fantastic player to have around. He's so versatile. He's a disruptor in midfield. He's all of those good things. And I think that the thing that typifies that is the performance away at Chelsea a week after or 2 weeks after the Newcastle game when Vitaly Janelt came on as a sub in about the 70th minute at Stamford Bridge and he changed the game. We were well on top for the last 20 minutes. So that's what I mean. He's not... I don't think he's a player that we necessarily have to have in the team every week. And I feel like shoehorning him in against Liverpool, and I know that they've got quality in midfield, but I don't think you need to have Norgard and Janelt together. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I don't think it needs to be Norgard and Janelt. It needs to be Norgard and Jensen or Norgard and Yarmo and then Damsgaard as the 10. I think Damsgaard yesterday, he was good. He's been good since Southampton, right? He's never been poor, but I think he does his best work in that 10 position, which is a shame for the likes of Fabio Carvalho. But I do think that's the way forward in terms of how we want to play. I think that's the key with how we should be playing this season. I think Damsgaard in the 10, he does his best work in there. On the wing, I think he's wasted. He's got so much talent, but that's the key. You've got Norgard as the 6 and Damsgaard as the 10. It's who you put in that 8 role, if you want to call it an 8 role. I don't think Vitaly Janelt is the answer, but it leads me on to talk about someone else. Tom Ritchie, shout out Tom, he said, I just don't get the Yarmo hype at all. He's solid enough, but what is he actually good at? And if you just kind of look at the replies to this, it just exemplifies football discourse in general. Like so many people just disagreeing, saying what game are you watching and stuff like that. Say it every game and Brentford softies think he's amazing, just a figure on the pitch. Someone else said it's got to be him or Janelt, too similar. Can't play both together, which is kind of what I'm saying. I thought he was poor today. I don't get the hype either. Then someone says statistically he's better than Vita as a defender, better on the ball than Damsgaard, quite good at dribbling. What I will say about the whole Yarmo, Janelt, optimum midfield 3 debate is that I think in terms of our optimal midfield 3, I think we saw it at Southampton with Norgard and Jensen and Damsgaard. I don't want to give up on Yarmo because I think the club have really high hopes for him. I want to take it back to the Newcastle game where I thought Yarmo was one of our best midfielders. And if we're talking about the best performance this season, it is that Newcastle game. So for Yarmo to kind of dominate in a midfield against Bruno Guimaraes, Joe Linton and Longstaff, granted they hadn't made the Tonali swap yet, that showed to me that he's got a level of quality to be able to play in this team. I think against Villa, he was one of our better players. But again, I think he was playing in that game with Vitaly as the 6, which I don't think he can do on his own. If you're going to play, it's one where you can play Norgard on his own, but you can't play Vitaly on his own. If Norgard's not in the team, Vitaly can't do that role on his own. So I actually think he was good in large spells against Villa, but in the first half got found out a lot. But I do think Yarmo, he has the potential to control games and offer a little bit more interplay with the 10 than someone like Janelt would. I think if you get Damsgaard and Yarmo in the same team, I think their interplay between each other, the passing lanes that they could create, I think is really exciting. In a similar way to what Matthias Jensen has with Damsgaard. If you think of the kind of player that Yarmo is, he's really good on the ball. He's a bit of a disruptor in midfield. He's quite creative. The technical ability is definitely there for everyone to see. If you put him and Damsgaard in the same team together, I think our ability to cut through teams down the middle and allow Johan Wissa to get in behind the defence in a central position, I think the potential for that actually goes up quite a lot more. It's just at the moment, I don't think it's not to the detriment of him. I just genuinely think maybe we don't have to play Janelt as much so that Yarmo has a bit more freedom to express himself, because I do think he can do the role that Janelt does defensively. It's just he can do more going forward than Janelt can. But I do understand this kind of argument, because I think bar maybe a couple of good performances at the start of the season and last season, for the amount that he was built up to be, Yarmo, I don't think he's quite lived up to all the talk that was going on. And I do think that potential, we'll start to see it, it will come with time. But I do think we need to move away from an integration of Janelt into the team when I don't think we really need him. And if we allow Jensen and Yarmo to kind of be those two midfield pivots, with Christian Nørgaard and Damsgaard as the 10, I do think we'd start to see better performances out of both of Jensen and Yarmo. But like Janelt, it's not a situation where I think Janelt needs to go immediately because he's such a key player. It's the same situation with Mads Roerslev. I just don't think either of those two have the quality for a team that need to take points off some of the top six. And we're going to see whether we can take points off the rest of the top six in the rest of the home games that we have against them. But in terms of that quality going forward, I think we saw our defensive quality yesterday. I think we defended really, really well for 90 minutes against the best team in the world. But we lacked that little bit of cutting edge up top. And that was in part due to a poor game from Brian, in part due to a bit of poor finishing from Wissa at times, just making the wrong decisions in forward areas. But I do feel like we would have been able to cut through Liverpool easier if Janelt wasn't in the team. And I know that this is it's a big debate amongst Brentford fans because there's so many different swelling opinions out there at the moment in terms of that Janelt, Nørgaard, Yarmo, Roerslev debate. But I think the key is Nørgaard. He always has to be there, and I think he was amazing again yesterday. But I do think that we don't need to play Nørgaard and Janelt together. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't think those two necessarily need to play together. And I think in terms of the best performances we had this season, Southampton away, Newcastle at home, they didn't play together. And that was big. How I want to round this video off is I was on a Liverpool podcast last week to preview the game, and they were kind of talking about how you think the second half of the season is going to go. And I've said it to the boys on the podcast as well. I'm actually really hopeful for a positive second half of the season because if you look at the way the fixtures fell in the first half, we had all of the difficult away games, away to the top six, and we didn't do well in them. We've now had the top three at home in Arsenal, Forest and Liverpool. We drew against City, which I don't think is a small thing to do anymore. I know they've been terrible recently, but if you look at the attacking options that they have and the quality that they have in those positions, that's the kind of thing that doesn't go away. So I don't think that 2-2 draw against City should be taken lightly. It's going to be interesting to find out how we do against the rest of them. Your Tottenham's, bookmark that game for an absolute goal fest, by the way, because they can't defend. It's going to be a similar end-to-end game like Liverpool was. But the difference is they really, really can't defend, and I think there's going to be opportunities where we counter with a greater threat. United at home will be interesting. Chelsea at home will be interesting as well because of how we played in the last 20 minutes against them. But what I'm trying to say is that I'm hopeful for the second half of the season. One, because Thiago's coming back. I think having that outlet up top and him being able to occupy defenders is something that we've really, really missed. And it's something that against Newcastle, when we lined up in this lineup, he was occupying Shah and Burn just on his own. And he did so much for the team off the ball. It was difficult to see because he didn't get on the score sheet and didn't provide an assist or whatever. But he was just so important to bringing Wissa and Mbeumo and Carvalho and Lewis Potter into play because of his work off the ball and the amount he dominates centre-back. So getting Thiago back is massively, massively important. I think getting Rico back is obviously a huge boost. Didn't play against Liverpool yesterday, but I imagine his slow integration back into the team is only going to be a good thing for us. Whether that pushes KLP out to the right and plays in Roerslev's position, I don't know. I think Thomas Frank has had conversations with KLP about him potentially playing as a right-back, which then would put Mads Roerslev on the bench. And I think he's a great player to have on the bench. That's going to be a really big positive for the team as well. So in terms of the way the fixtures have fallen, we have easier games at home now in terms of the rest of the top six, and we have easier games away from home, which is why I'm actually quite positive about the second half of the season. I've kind of convinced myself, being an optimistic Brentford fan, that now that we don't have any cup competitions to focus on, even though that really, really frustrates me, we should now, bar no injuries and bar key players coming back, have a really strong finish to the season. And if the games against Liverpool and Manchester City serve as examples, then we definitely should have a strong end to the season. We definitely should. I think that's everything that I wanted to talk about in this video. Let me know in the comments because it's a really good debate in terms of those three players, Yehor Yarmoliuk, Mads Roerslev and Vitaly Janelt. I've seen so many people talking about them online. And I've weighed in. I could be wrong, but football's a game of opinion. So let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know why I'm wrong in the comments and we can have a good debate. But that is the end of this video. The podcast will be coming out on Monday, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. Follow me on TikTok. The link for that will be in the description. I do more immediate reaction stuff on there now as well. Rating every Brentford player's season. That video is going to be coming this week or next week, I think. So let me know in the comments if that's the kind of video that you want to see. And yeah, I think yesterday, really positive. We can't really dwell too much against a 2-0 defeat at home against Liverpool. I think they're the best team in the league, the best team in the world, as Thomas Frank said in his post-match interview, and it was a really, really good defensive performance. But I've just highlighted in this video a couple of things that I want to talk about in terms of those 3 players in particular. And we'll probably dive into it a little bit more in the podcast. So I'll see you there. The link for the channel will be in the description. All of those links for socials, everything like that will be in the description. Remember to drop a comment, like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.